Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a really incredible journey, I think. We're going to try and uncover some ancient wisdom that, well, feels surprisingly relevant right now.
It often does, doesn't it?
It really does. We're taking a deep dive into two really foundational texts of Indian philosophy, the Taittiriya Upanishad and the Aitareya Upanishad.
Yeah, two major ones.
Absolutely. And our mission, basically, is to pull out the core insights, maybe some surprising nuggets of knowledge from these ancient sources. Give you a kind of shortcut, maybe, to understanding these profound concepts about the self, consciousness, and, well, the nature of reality itself.
And these aren't just, obscure texts. Both the Taittiriya and Aitareya are considered primary Upanishads. Mukhya Upanishads, they're called.
Mukhya Upanishads.
Right. They've been hugely influential. You have figures like Adi Shankaracharya writing massive commentaries on them.
Wow.
And they're actually integrated into the larger Vedic scriptures, too. The Taittiriya is part of the Krishna Yajurveda, and the Aitareya that's found in the Rig Veda, so they're really central.
That integration really says something about their importance. And speaking of the Taittiriya, I heard there's this really intriguing origin story behind the name. Something about birds.
Oh yeah, the legend's fantastic. It goes that the pupils of the sage Vaishampayana, they actually transform themselves into Titira's partridges.
Partridges?
Yeah, partridges. To sort of retrieve this Vedic knowledge that they felt they'd lost or needed to get back from their teacher. It's quite a vivid image.
It really is. Devoted students literally taking flight to get sacred wisdom back.
Wow. And, maybe that hints a bit at the text structure, too, because the Taittiriya Upanishad, it's very cleverly laid out. It has 3 progressive sections. They're called valleys. Yeah, valleys. And they're designed, really, to guide the student, kind of step by step. You start with ethical discipline, the foundations, and it leads you all the way to the ultimate knowledge of Brahman, the supreme reality.
That structure sounds very deliberate. Why do you think they chose that, progressive method? Why not just jump straight into the big philosophical ideas?
Well, I think it shows a deep understanding of, how realization works. It's not just about intellectual fireworks. You need a solid base.
Makes sense.
So the first section, the Sikavali, that means the chapter on instruction, it really focuses on setting that stage. It's all about ethical and intellectual discipline.
Okay.
And it puts a lot of emphasis on shika.
Shiko. That's phonetics, right?
Exactly, the ancient science of phonetics, which seems maybe a bit technical to us now, but it highlights the incredible precision they placed on sound, on chanting.
So why was phonetics, shika, considered so critical back then? What was it about the sound itself?
Well, in the Vedic tradition, getting the mantras right, the pronunciation, the intonation, that was absolutely crucial for them to be effective. It was just speaking. It was like performing a sacred sonic ritual almost.
Wow, like cosmic tuning forks or something.
Kind of, and the chapter reflects the seriousness. It starts with these beautiful prayers, for the teacher and the student together, emphasizing that relationship. And it gets really detailed about phonetics, the 6 elements: sound, pitch, measure, strength, rhythm, connection.
It sounds incredibly thorough, almost like an ancient guide to public speaking, but yeah, with cosmic stakes.
Absolutely. And then it moves into what's often called a farewell address from the teacher.
Okay.
And this part really lays down a profound code of conduct. It's not just rules, it's deeper.
What kind of things does it cover?
Well, very direct ethical instructions. Speak the truth. Practice righteousness, or dharma. Don't neglect your self-study and learning, things like that.
Pretty fundamental stuff.
Yeah, but also this profound reverence for relationships, particularly elders. Honor your mother as a god. Honor your father as a god. Honor your teacher as a god.
Wow. That really elevates everyday relationships.
It does. It shows that this disciplined life, this upright character, it's not separate from the spiritual journey. It is the essential groundwork.
So, if that ancient wisdom says outer discipline, how you speak, how you treat people, is the necessary foundation for the inner journey. What does that suggest about, our modern tendency to look for spiritual hacks or quick fixes, maybe skipping the groundwork?
It certainly suggests there aren't really any shortcuts, doesn't it? The foundation matters. You build from there.
Okay, so we've laid that groundwork with discipline. We understand the how, maybe. Where does the Taittiriya take us next? What about the what's, the core philosophy?
Right, now we get to the really juicy part. That's the Brahmanandavali, the 2nd chapter. This is where the deep philosophy comes in.
The chapter on Brahman and bliss, is that right?
Exactly. And it introduces this incredibly important concept, the Pancha Kosha, the 5 sheaths.
Pancha. 5.
Great
Core
job.
sheaths, okay.
Yeah. These are conceptual layers, you could say, that envelop the Atman, your true self. And the whole spiritual goal, according to this model, is to kind of systematically peel away these layers of identification.
Peel them away to get to what's underneath.
To get to the Atman itself and to realize its identity with Brahman, the ultimate reality.
It sounds almost like a kind of psychological or spiritual deconstruction. Are these sheaths meant to be like actual physical layers or more like ways we understand ourselves?
Definitely more conceptual models. They're powerful tools for introspection, for self-inquiry. They describe these different dimensions of our experience that we tend to mistakenly think are us.
Okay, so what are they? What are these 5 layers?
Well, you start with the outermost sheath. That's the Annamaya Kosha, the food sheath. Basically, your physical body sustained by food.
Right, the physical self.
Then moving inward, you have the Prathamaya Kosha, the life force sheath. That's your vital energy, your breath, the animating principle.
Prana, okay.
After that comes the Manomaya Kosha, the mind sheath. This includes your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, the constant mental chatter.
That sounds familiar.
Doesn't just.
Yeah.
Then deeper still is the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellect sheath. This is the faculty of discrimination, knowledge, judgment, the part that understands and decides.
The reasoning mind.
Right. And then finally, the innermost layer is the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath. This points towards a state of profound, inherent happiness, deep joy, contentment.
The bliss sheath. That's the closest one to the self.
It's the innermost sheath, yes, reflecting that bliss. But the core teaching is that the true self, the Atman, is actually beyond even this bliss sheath. It's the witness of all these layers.
Okay. So even bliss isn't the final destination in a way.
Bliss is closer to the nature of the self, but the self itself transcends all these coverings. And the text says that through deep introspection, sustained effort, a process called tapas.
Tapas, I've heard that word. It means heat or austerity.
Yeah, literally to heat. It implies intense spiritual discipline, focused energy, meditation. Through tapas, the seeker can burn through these identifications and realize their true nature, Atman, is identical with Brahman.
And how does it describe Brahman here?
The definition given is incredibly profound. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma.
Satyam, truth. Jnanam, knowledge. Anantam, infinite.
Exactly. Brahman is truth, knowledge, and infinite. And it even gets into this fascinating discussion, almost a calculus of bliss, showing how all the joys we might experience in the world are just tiny, tiny fractions of that infinite, undivided bliss of Brahman.
Wow, that is a mind-bending idea. Connecting our own experience of joy, however fleeting, to this ultimate cosmic reality.
It really reframes everything.
Okay, so that's the core philosophy, and then we get the 3rd chapter, the Bhugavali. You said this one is more like a practical demonstration.
That's right. It puts the philosophy into action, presented as this dialogue between a sage, Varuna, and his son, Vugu.
A father-son teaching moment.
Exactly. And what's really striking is that Varuna doesn't just give Gugu the answer on a plate. He doesn't say, okay, son, Brahman is X.
No. What does he do?
He tells Vugu to go and find out for himself. Through tapas, intense discipline, meditation, self-inquiry, discover Brahman through your own experience.
So he sends him off on a quest, essentially.
A quest inwards. And Vugu does it. He goes through this process of realization step by step. And interestingly, his realizations mirror the 5 sheaths we just talked about, but in reverse order of subtlety, starting from the grossest.
Oh, interesting. So how does that unfold?
Well, first, through his tapas, Vugu observes that everything seems to come from and be sustained by Anna, food, matter. So he concludes, initially, Brahman must be food.
Okay, logical starting point.
He goes back to his father. Varuna doesn't say wrong. He just says, go do more tapas.
Keep digging deeper.
Right. So Vugu goes back, meditates more intensely, and realizes, wait, it's not just matter, it's prana, the life force that seems more fundamental. Everything lives because of prana.
Okay, moving inward. Like the sheaths.
Exactly. Back to dad. More tapas. Next, Biga realizes it must be manas, the mind, because mind directs life force and matter.
Makes sense.
Still not it. More tapas. Then he realizes it's vijnana, intellect or consciousness that underlies even the mind.
Getting closer.
Getting much closer. One final round of intense tapas. And then finally, Vugu has the ultimate realization. He understands that Brahman is Ananda bliss.
The innermost sheath again?
Yes, but now realized not just as a sheath, but as the fundamental nature of reality. The ultimate source from which all beings arise. The sustainer by which they live. and the ultimate reality into which they dissolve. Bliss itself is the ground of being.
Wow. That journey is powerful. It really underlines the idea that this isn't just intellectual knowledge.
Absolutely not. The key takeaway from Bihu's story is that knowledge of Brahman isn't something you just read or hear about. It has to be an experiential realization. It comes through that often difficult personal process of self-inquiry.
It's less about knowing the truth conceptually and more about becoming it, experiencing it directly.
Precisely. So, for you listening, this isn't just ancient philosophy. It's framed as an invitation to your own potential experiment in self-discovery.
That's a powerful shift.
Yeah.
From theory to lived reality. And, this emphasis on inner realization, it echoes in other texts too.
Which brings us nicely to the Aitareya Upanishad. It offers a perhaps even more concise and bold take on the self, doesn't it?
It really does. The Aitareya Upanishad is another one of the principal Upanishads, the Mukhya ones. This one's from the Rig Veda.
Okay.
And it's known for being quite different in style from the Taittiriya, just very concise, very direct prose. Sometimes it's even called a scripture for the common man because it's seen as more accessible, perhaps.
Shorter too, right?
Much shorter.
Yeah.
Just 33 verses in 3 chapters, but incredibly potent. Don't let the length fool you.
Okay. So the Taittiriya gave us this path through the sheaths to unity. Does the Aitareya approach this core theme, the unity of Atman and Brahman, differently? Does it emphasize maybe another facet of that non-dual reality?
It does, yeah, beautifully so. It starts right off with this profound, almost stark assertion. In the very beginning, there was only Atman, only the self. Nothing else existed.
Just the self.
Wow.
And then, out of a desire to create, this universal self brought forth the entire cosmos. The text describes this whole creation narrative. Atman creates the worlds, appoints protectors or deities for these worlds, and then, crucially, Atman enters into all these created forms as the inner self.
So the creator enters the creation.
Exactly. The implication is massive. The universe isn't separate from Atman. It is a manifestation of Atman. It's not something out there. It's an expression of the self.
So the whole universe is basically a projection or a thought or a desire of this one universal self. That completely reframes our relationship to everything, doesn't it? Reality isn't separate from us in that sense.
Fundamentally, yes. That's the Advaitic perspective it points towards. And then it presents this really unique theory about the self having 3 births within a single human lifetime.
3 births. That's not something you hear every day. What are they?
It's quite distinct. The first birth, it says, is actually the act of procreation itself. The self resides as the germ or essence within the man, and then it unites with the woman in the womb. That unification is the first birth.
So conception itself is the first arrival of the self in this form,
Yep.
okay? What's the second?
The second birth is when the child is actually born, leaves the womb, and is then cared for and nurtured by the parents. As the child grows and develops, becoming an independent being capable of carrying on the lineage or duties, that's seen as the second birth. The self becoming manifest and established in the world.
Okay, birth and growth into personhood.
Okay.
And the third?
The third birth, according to the Aitareya, happens at death.
At death.
Yes. When the individual Atman, having fulfilled its purpose or completed its journey in that particular body, leaves it. It transmigrates. That departure is considered the third birth onto the next stage, whatever that may be.
That's a fascinating perspective. Framing existence not just as birth, life, death, but as these 3 distinct births or transformations of the self within that cycle. Very different.
It offers a unique lens on life stages and the ongoing journey of the self.
And then we get to what's arguably the most famous, most profound teaching of the Aitareya Upanishad. Maybe the most impactful line. It can be a real aha moment for people, I think.
Absolutely. It's one of the great Mahavakyas.
Prajanam Brahma. Consciousness is Brahman.
Yes, Prajanam Brahma. It's one of the 4 great sayings of the Upanishads, and it's incredibly powerful in its simplicity.
So let's unpack that. Consciousness is Brahman. What does that statement truly mean for how we understand reality ourselves?
It's a radical declaration. It asserts that the absolute fundamental essence of the self, yourself, myself, everyone's self, and the very nature of ultimate reality, Brahman, is pure consciousness, prajanam.
Awareness itself.
Not consciousness of something, but consciousness itself.
Exactly. The ground state.
Yeah.
And a key insight here is that the text then expands on this, saying that all faculties, intellect, morality, perception, and all the gods, all living beings, everything that exists, is ultimately rooted in and an expression of this single universal consciousness.
Everything stems from awareness. Right. And this leads directly to the path of liberation. The Aitareya makes it clear. True freedom, moksha, isn't achieved through rituals, good deeds, or anything external, really.
So how is it achieved?
It's achieved through the direct realization, the deep experiential knowing of this fundamental truth, that your own individual consciousness isn't separate, isn't limited, but is actually identical with the supreme, all-pervading reality, Brahman. The consciousness in you is the consciousness of the universe.
That is huge. That realization itself is liberation.
That's the core message, and this bold, direct statement, Pancha and Brahma, is why the Aitareya Upanishad became such a cornerstone for later Vedanta philosophy.
Especially Advaita Vedanta, right? The non-dual school.
Precisely. It profoundly influenced thinkers like Adi Shankara. It encapsulates that core tenet of Advaita. Reality is non-dual. There is only Brahman, and that Brahman is consciousness. It really represents that shift in focus for the seeker, away from external actions and towards inner self-knowledge, inner realization.
So when we look at both texts together, the Taittiriya and the Aitareya, they offer distinct paths, different styles, but they seem to converge on this profound insight about the self, Atman, and its unity with the ultimate reality, Brahman.
They absolutely do. They complement each other beautifully, I think. The Taittiriya gives you this meticulous, almost guided journey, peeling back those layers, the Koshas, guiding you experientially towards realizing that blissful unity, Ananda.
Like a step-by-step map in words.
Yeah. And then the Aitareya comes in with this incredibly direct, powerful declaration. Prajnanan and Brahma. Consciousness is Brahman. Just cuts right to the core, revealing the all-pervading nature of the self as pure awareness.
It feels like these ancient texts, they're not just, historical documents or philosophical curiosities. They're offering timeless wisdom tools, really, for grappling with the most fundamental questions of existence, of who we are.
Definitely. And they consistently encourage that shift, don't they?
Yeah.
Away from seeking understanding purely out there, in rituals, in the world, even in just reading text towards realizing it in here, internally. Experientially.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to ponder. If, as these ancient texts powerfully suggest, the very essence of your own consciousness, the awareness reading these words or hearing this voice right now, if that is truly identical to the supreme, infinite, all-pervading reality of the entire universe, what does that actually imply? What does that mean about your potential, maybe your perceived limitations, and ultimately your connection to absolutely everything around you?